Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 Calls Memorial Data Dive. This tournament is held in Dublin, Ohio. It is Jack Nicklaus course. It is Jack Nicklaus tournament, and we're going to look at some data on DraftKings, outright betting info, some daily fantasy tips that I have. Full disclosure, all statistics are from fantasynational.com, and I'll show what I have valued on that research tool. It's what I'll be using to make my suggestions to you. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look here at Fantasy National. And when you see this, if you are a member, this is what you would see. A lot of information here, a lot of good information here, and this will be used to help you make some winning picks. Some course information about Muirfield Village. It absolutely escaped me for a second. Oh my goodness, it is late. Muirfield Village plays at about 7,540 yards. It's a long course. It's par 72. Obviously a Jack Nicklaus design. The greens are bent with some POA overseeded a little bit for the time of year. And the main thing to remember for this tournament, if you remember anything from last year, is as soon as the final group was playing through a hole, they had the grounds crew literally ripping up the green as the players were teeing off on the next hole. This course went through a complete makeover on the greens, especially a little bit of the fairways, new tee boxes. They lengthened it by about 100 yards, I think. Don't quote me on that. There's certainly other content creators that could probably narrow it down better for you, but it's about 100 yards. It's a very difficult course. Most of the par threes have been lengthened to over 200 yards. There used to be a drivable par four. I don't think that's in play anymore. I think it used to be hole number 14 was the risk reward par four. Drivable could get into a lot of trouble if you weren't careful. But as you look at this scorecard, you will see that the main difficulties come at the end of the round, specifically 16, 17, and 18, the bear trap. So when evaluating for DraftKings, especially if you're going to play in showdowns, you kind of want to see if you can find some birdie runs because of the bonus scoring system. And if you don't have any idea on DraftKings scoring or what to look for, please, by all means, leave a comment, and I will get to as many questions or things that are left for me, which, by the way, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, greatly appreciated. But when you look at a course like this, most of the par fours are very long. I believe only one or two don't measure at 450 plus yards. I think there is one that might be 500 or close to it. I'm sure 17 will play 500 a day or two. Hole one, while not the toughest, it's the seventh toughest hole on the course. Certainly can present some trouble. Certainly more bogeys than birdies. But the key to Muirfield Village, you have to take advantage of the par fives. The par fives are, I wouldn't say eagle opportunities, maybe outside of 5 and 15, but this is where you have to make your hay if you're going to win at Memorial. You have to take advantage of the par fives and kind of hold on for dear life the rest of the course. It is not an easy course by any stretch of the imagination. Scrambling here is not the most valuable. What you're looking for mainly is a lot of sand players or players that just don't find themselves in trouble hitting a lot of greens, are dialed in with their approaches. If you're going to miss the fairway here at Muirfield, you're set up for a lot of trouble. The rough is generally long. It is not easy to play out of. The greens are lightning fast, so players controlling their spins out of rough generally aren't able to do so, and they're going to be even less so here at Muirfield. So one of the things I value highly, especially at a tournament like this, is strokes gained approach. And when you are looking at players with a lot of strokes gained approach, the beautiful thing about Fantasy National, you can look at whoever is in the field. It defaults to whatever week tournament it is. Weeks tournament, WEEK. You can sort by certain statistics. So here I am sorting by strokes gained approach. And no surprise, Colin Morikawa for the last 50 rounds is your leader in strokes gained approach. He is a wizard with the irons. Can't really putt, but you can count on him to dial in with the irons and hope that the putter cooperates on a week, and the times that it does, hence the 2019 or 2020 PGA, he'll win the tournament because he's that good with his irons. Corey Connors, another well-known ball striker, especially with the irons. Charlie Hoffman is in incredible form. Doesn't have a win this year, but he's playing ridiculously well, unconscious with his irons. Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, always known as a good ball striker. So the beautiful thing with Fantasy National is you can search for whatever statistics you value in a given tournament. And another great thing is, especially if you're into the daily fantasy scene, they've got ownership projections, lineup generators. I am going to be building a simulator here in the pretty near future. Still working through some details on that, and it may very well be the same thing as this simulator on Fantasy National. But it's something that I'm certainly going to build and use in my analysis and my projections and my estimations on who's going to win tournaments and play well, and hence that's why we're here, to try to win money. So when you look at something like Fantasy National and you go to strokes gained total, it's pretty obvious the best players in the world are going to rise to the top. Jordan Spieth, who's in amazing form and is widely known as one of the best players in the world when he's in form. He had about a 2-year hiatus there where he just couldn't do anything. And he's back, or seemingly he's back. He's playing well. Xander Schofley, always known as a very consistent, very high-level player. Victor Hovland, John Rahm. No, these people need no introductions, no explanation on who they are and why they're at the top of the leaderboards and top of the world rankings. But a great thing about Fantasy National, especially in the daily fantasy realm, is that it will default to sorting by salary based on DraftKings. And I mean, this is such a customizable tool to use at your disposal when you sign up, you can change your sample sizes if you want to say, I just want to check who's been playing the best recently. I don't care about past performances this year. I just want to see who's played well recently. Well, Sam Burns coming off his maiden victory. I believe it was, well, it'll tell you, at Valspar. And that's another great thing about this tool. It'll tell you strokes gained per putting surface, by wind conditions, past performances. It's a very good tool, and I am absolutely going to use this to help, especially with my predictions, but also to try to help you all and what to value, what to look for, and just perhaps not listen to me. If you sign up, get this tool, you don't have to listen to a word I say and just make your own predictions. You're probably going to do better than me, but hey, I'm here to help, or at least attempt to. So the great thing about Fantasy National that I use is custom stat model, and I've been using it now for a little bit. I started at the PGA 2 or 3 weeks ago, but certainly was using it before then when I signed up to be a member. I've used it every week since the PGA, but you can save multiple models and come back year over year and figure out what worked, what didn't, adjust as need be. But in my first go around at Muirfield here for 2021, this is what I'm valuing. I'm always going to be valuing strokes gained approach. That's just the kind of player I am going to want to target. And my thinking behind that is, if a player is dialed in with his irons, generally he's going to have better looks at birdies and so forth. Putting is a fickle stat in the sense of one round, even not even week, but one round you can putt well and then completely lose it the next day and get it back and lose it. And it's not to say you can't do that with off the tee and your irons, but putting I have found is the absolutely most fickle of the stats. So I'm always going to value strokes gained approach. So generally on my models, the similar people are going to rise to the top just because of how much I value that. This course is long. You certainly need to be able to handle yourself off the tee. So I'm putting a little bit of weight there. Strokes gained off the tee combines driving distance and fairways hit. Obviously, the best scenario is Bryson DeChambeau hitting 350-yard drives and finding the fairway every time. He doesn't do that. That's why he loses a little bit off the tee, because he doesn't find a lot of fairways. As opposed to somebody like Brendan Todd, who isn't a long hitter by any means, but finds fairways. He's going to be generally pretty good and off the tee just because of the fairways. And as I discussed in the opening, if you're going to miss fairways here at Muirfield, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You certainly need some length, so I'm not saying that you have to hit iron, or you're able to hit irons off every tee and be okay. Some courses you can do that, not here. You certainly have to put the ball out there. But if you're going to be a shorter hitter, you have to find the fairway. And honestly, longer hitters need to find the fairway too, just because of how long the rough is usually here. They may change it. I highly doubt it, because I felt like Jack Nicklaus probably frowned at how low the scores were last year at the Memorial, or at the concession, WGC concession. So I imagine he's going to set this up pretty tough. And the greens are always lightning fast. Always lightning fast here at Muirfield. It's a true test of your putting acumen. So approach off the tee. I did put in strokes gained around the green, which is generally your chipping, your sand, and scrambling. But it's important to note that, especially here at Muirfield, while around the green will be valuable, it's definitely not as valuable as sand saves. The sand here is difficult to play out of, and with the combination of lightning fast greens, you're going to need sand players who can get up and down better, easier than others. If you have a bad sand player, you better hope that they hit every green in regulation, and spoiler alert, that's not going to happen. This course is tough enough as it is. You're going to find yourselves in trouble. So I put a little bit of weight in around the green, but mainly that is on sand play, and I gathered some data here that here in a little bit I hope to help you out with, to separate the two between sand and around the green. Putting, you need strokes gained putting. You have to putt well to win tournaments. Again, it's a little bit of a fickle stat, but if you can find somebody who is generally better on bent grass, they're going to do better here than other places that are Bermuda or even POA. The par threes, they're extra long, so I wanted to see who did well on the length of par threes that you'll find here. Same with the par fours. 6 or 7 of the 8 par fours are between 450 and 500 yards. It is going to require some distance. You're going to have to find the fairway. You need to find people or players who excel at that range, just to not lose strokes, not to bleed strokes, because that is definitely the toughest part of this course. And then I generally, because I'm such an approach-focused player, I tend to add some proximity figures into my model. Here I did 175, or 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. I generally think that's going to be the ranges that are going to be useful for irons at Muirfield, and you can actually check that by going to the course breakdown and seeing that, hey, approach shot distribution here is 23.5% from 150 to 175, whereas the tour average is only 20.5%. So more here, a lot more relative to the PGA tour average for 175 to 200. So that's why I added those two proximity measures in my model. As I was talking about earlier, you've got 6 par fours between 450 and 500 yards. That's the toughest part of the course. You're going to have to do well on that if you're going to survive here at Muirfield. Another key statistic, and why I said this course is generally tough, the cut line has generally been over par. Last year, 2018 notwithstanding, I mean, it was +1 here. Even last year, coming out of the COVID break, where you had these superstar fields for the first month to month and a half because everybody was off and people were itching to play golf again. Even with a superstar studded field, the cut was +4. This is a tremendously difficult course. You see that driving accuracy here is actually up between here and most other tour events. I don't think that's because this is a club down course. Certainly there are strategies that do that, but players know that you have to hit the fairway. So 3 woods might be common, or an extra emphasis on drivers that find the fairway as opposed to distance. Very small greens, the green in regulation percentage is much lower than the tour average. That is also due to the length of the rough. If you're in the rough, it is very difficult to find yourself not scrambling. Indicated here, obviously. Distance is down here because players know that they need to find fairways. Distance of birdie putts is kind of average around the tour. So the great thing about Muirfield, it will reward somebody who has all facets of their game clicking. So looking at that, using this model that I have built, and I generally like to go the past 36 rounds. That gives you not necessarily a small sample, so you have some data in there, but it's not going back years and years or months and months, maybe gathering data from 2018, 19, so on and so forth. It's fairly recent form, but not so little that it's a small sample size, throw it out type of deal. And I'm always going to be an advocate of sample size matters. Certainly, if you want to value hot riding form, that's not wrong by any means. It's just a different way to approach it. But using the model that I kind of valued, I was surprised to see that Viktor Hovland was first. I'm not surprised that in the sense of quality of player he is, but he doesn't strike me as somebody who finds a ton of fairways. He's known as more of a big hitter, but off the tee, he's third. And that was for the past 36 rounds. He's dialed in with the big stick. Very good. Obviously, Bryson, due to distance, and he isn't spraying it everywhere. He's generally on the course and finding fairways at a decent clip. He's going to be number one and off the tee. But Viktor Hovland's my number one rated player, and you're going to pay for that if you're playing daily fantasy. You're certainly paying for it in the betting market. I believe I have the DraftKings odds here. Yeah, Hovland is your second choice at 14-1. I would shop more for that price, but you can't argue the talent of the player. Excuse me while I take a sip of the Gatorade. Xander Schofley, I'm a big believer in. Just great all-around player. Hasn't really come through with a major, like a big-time win, not let alone a major. DeChambeau, Spieth. Keegan Bradley fits a lot of the mold of what you're wanting to do around Muirfield. Solid ball striker. His putting right now, which is usually his downfall, is acceptable. 77th among the people in the field. So if he can not lose a million strokes on the green, he's going to be in good shape as long as everything else continues at the rate he's going. Charlie Hoffman's in just amazing form right now. Thomas, Patrick Cantley. Corey Connors is an analytic darling. Very good with his irons. Getting a lot better. Sorry as I jump around with the mouse. Getting a lot better off the tee. His putting used to be pretty bad, kind of like Keegan. It's gotten better, and that's why he's starting to rise in commonality, household name. He's getting a lot better. You go down the list: Finau, Fitzpatrick, Rahm. So I put together a little comparison sheet here, and don't mind me as I try to bring it up for you all. Let me open it via Excel, so it won't be the prettiest, and I apologize, but this is kind of let's see. Oh yeah, my thing crashed the other day. All right, so I was mentioning earlier about the around the green and why you shouldn't value just around the green in the normal sense because the sand is so difficult here. You want to find players who are disproportionately very good out of the sand instead of just around the green. And that's what I attempted to do here in these columns here. By the way, in the comments, let me know, is this easy to see? Is it not easy to see? Do I need to zoom in on it? So yeah, please let me know. Comments will be greatly appreciated. But I have done a very rudimentary ranking based on 50% around the green and 50% sand only, or sand saves. And Ben On comes in at number one. He's just a great short game player. Just simple as that. Can't putt what or shit, but he's very good chipping and around the green. No surprise, Cameron Smith, one of the best, rising stars in golf. He's very good around the green. Most Aussies are. Wyndham Clark, player that not a lot of people are familiar with, very good around the green. Bezadenhout, Seabez, can't drive it worth a damn, but the closer he is to the hole, generally the better. And then you got, your powerhouses, Jordan Spieth, Louis, Fratelli, always known as a great short game player. Brandon Hagee actually has been in pretty good form lately. He is known as a big bomber, not to Bryson's level, but certainly not too far off. And his short game was the one that is what held him back. He's starting to play pretty well, and you're starting to see him creeping up leaderboards here and there. But if I sort just by the sand, you'll see that it changes fairly significantly. Cameron Smith, number one. KJ Choi, very good out of the sand, not great around the green. So that's somebody you can consider higher, I don't want to say priority, but higher on your list of rankings, or at least on mine, when I'm evaluating somebody for Muirfield. Xander Schofley, Matt Kuchar, always very good. Been on Wyndham Clark, Seabez. I was surprised by Danny Lee. Supposedly very good out of the sand, but you haven't seen much of Danny Lee lately. In fact, what have you seen from Danny Lee? Let's see. Around the green, I know he's generally terrible. I think he was like 108. No, 109. Danny Lee, what have you been up to? Oh, okay. Well, lots of miscuts. 40th last week, so he made the cut, but he's just atrocious around the green. He's actually doing somewhat pretty good off the tee. But yeah, just terrible around the green. Just giving away shots. And this is per round, mind you. Per tournament. Sorry, that's I misspoke. That's per tournament. So he lost 3 strokes last week around the green. Byron Nelson, he gained a little bit and missed the cut because nothing else was with him. Pretty good at Valspar, where Sam Burns won, and that's because he actually found something with the wedges that week. Still couldn't putt. Danny Lee, very good out of sand. Not so much everywhere else, at least in the around the green department. So that's a very rudimentary look at what I was trying to compare there with sand players versus just around the green in total. Somebody who stuck out to me, Emiliano Griot, another analytical darling, playing pretty well right now as well. Hence the 7,700 DraftKings pricing. It's a pretty fair price, maybe even a little under, but he's going to be chalky. He's going to be very, very chalky. And if you're looking for a pivot, that would be one way to pivot off the chalk, is to not play Griot. I think that might be a mistake. I might eat the chalk this week, play Griot. He's in good form. Putting, I believe, is his, I think bent is actually his best surface. Let's see. Where's Griot? I thought he was down here. This is what I get for not having completely prepared. I can just search for him. Griot. There he is. Bent. I think Bent is his preferred. Yeah. So, I mean, he loses strokes per round on any other surface, but he actually gains a little bit on Bent. And that's what's here at Muirfield. I think Griot's going to be a very good play. I don't know if I would outright bet him. Last I saw, he is 70-ish to 1, maybe a little less. Griot 50 to 1, so he's been bet down quite a bit. It seems like a lot of sharps are on him. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Great thing about Fantasy National, you can also look at, by green type. I'll load my model here for the past 36 rounds, and who performs better on bent as opposed to other surfaces. So now Tony Finau jumps to number 1 in my rankings based on bent, and you can kind of see why he is. That's his best preferred surface. He's in pretty good form. Kind of throw out the players, throw out a 2 or 3 week tournament stretch there. I mean, 10th at the Masters, can't argue with that. 8th at the PGA, 20th last week. I mean, he's in good form. Another player that will probably be chalky. He is usually bet down in the market, as in his price is lower than what I think it should be. So I'm going to stay away from Tony Finau. I believe he's a 20 or so to 1. And I'll give my bets so far in the week here at the end of the episode. I'm trying to keep it somewhat fairly short, but this is a full data dive into the Memorial 2021 Memorial. So yeah, looking at DraftKings salary by focused on bent performance using my model. It looks like an easy fade would be Jordan Spieth, who's the favorite, at least by DraftKings points wise. I believe John Rahm is the betting favorite at 11 to 1. But that would be an easy fade, according to my rankings. Certainly not arguing the talent of the player, the form. Bent is not his surface. Even though he does well at, there you go. I'm a liar. I don't know why he is 60th then, if bent is his. Wow, if bent's that good for him and he's still 60th. What is? Okay. So that's what's driving his down, is that he is not good at the approaches that I have deemed important for this week, and who knows if it's going to be important. I don't know. Maybe you'll just have a bunch of wedges and lap the field by 8 strokes and win, going away. I don't know. But I'm kind of off of Jordan Spieth. There's going to be, I think there will be a lull here eventually. I don't think he's going to continue to churn out top 5s. If he does, all the power to him, and I'll lose all my money. I really like Rahm this week. He's going to be chalky. Morikawa, very good. Justin Thomas hasn't been playing the greatest, and there were some signs of life last week. Signs last week at the Charles Schwab. He had a bad round or two, but he was good off the tee. Great off the tee. Wasn't very good chipping, which is not usually the case. You look here, he's usually gaining, anywhere between 1 and 3 strokes. He did lose some at waste management, but generally you're seeing a lot of green for Justin Thomas around the green, and last week just couldn't chip. He just couldn't chip. So if he continues this putting form that he's on, look out for Justin Thomas, especially since around the green he's usually one of the best in the world. So that's where I'm kind of leaning if I were to go to a more stars and scrubs approach to fantasy lineups. I haven't really made many lineups yet, hence why I don't have many people starred. which is a very cool feature with Fantasy National. Let's just say I wanted to take a look at John Rahm and Justin Thomas. We'll throw Victor, since he was my number 1 overall, Xander, and Cantley. Let's just look at those for a second. You go to these ownership projections. Fantasy National, don't have enough players selected. Well, let's do some more. Matsuyama, Connors, Finau, Reed. Let's find Griot. He's going to be chalky, but certainly for good reason. Let's add Bezadenhout. I like Seabez. This week. I like Russell Henley being a ball striker on a ball striker's course. Keegan was up there, high on the model. Hoffman was high on the model. Cam Smith was high on the model. So let's add some more players here. Ownership projections. Come through for me. There we go. So the great thing about Fantasy National, this will update fairly constantly. It'll show you how, and this is per Fantasy National, how many users are kind of keying in on these players, calculated ownerships. This will give you a good idea on who to fade, what kind of chalk you want to eat, so on and so forth when making your lineups week to week, especially for this 2021 Memorial. As we kind of go down the board here and look at our 9,000s, as I unfavorite who I have so far. Going down into your 9,000s, Hovland at the top at 9,900. You got Schofley at 97, Cantley 95, Matsuyama 94, Connors 93. Connors is generally pretty chalky, especially among the analytics community. Finau 92, he's just a popular player. Patrick Reed 91, and Scheffler 9,000. Scheffler's kind of flying under the radar. I have to agree with a lot of the content creators out there, and by no means am I going to tell you that I'm the only content creator. I'm trying to give you some advice. I'm hoping it works. I would absolutely not tell you to take my word as the last word. Go and find other opinions. Go and find other lines, especially if you're going to put some money on the line. Try to shop that number of Hovland at 14. Maybe you find a 20. Maybe you find a 22. Again, I'm not sponsored by DraftKings. I'm just using DraftKings as the ease of convenience, since that's where I play daily fantasy as well. But going through the 9,000s, I have Xander rated the highest. And again, remember, I have Bent checked. If I wanted to go back off of Bent and just do my model straight, Hovland's going to be number 1. I think he's probably going to be pretty chalky as well, but no denying the talent. Hovland, Schofley, Keegan, who's not in the 9,000s, but Keegan's high up at Cantley. Do you believe that one tournament makes Cantley back? Is he back? I don't know. Certainly it's his best bent, or his best putting surface bent. But you look at this form of basically 2 months of nothing but, things, he was gone. He was a non-factor at the Masters, did not play well at the Players, Heritage, Wells Fargo. If you believe in a tough course like Kiowa Island was at the PGA, if you believe that one tournament makes a player and want to jump back on Cantley, it would be a good time to do so. I believe he has won this tournament in the past. Let's see, that was 2020. Let's go back to, let's see, that's Cantley. Let's see. Can I search for the Memorial? I'm sure I can. Filter Memorial. Yeah. So in 2019, that's what I thought. And 18, he was highly successful as well. If you believe Cantley's back, this will be a time to jump on him, especially in outright betting markets. I think he's 22, 25 to 1. Cantley, yeah, okay. So the sharps are on him. He's been bet down to 16 to 1 already. I know early in the week he was somewhere in the 22 to 25 range. So again, maybe you can find that number still out there. But Cantley is a good play this week. I'm probably going to fade him. I would like to see one more solid performance out of him, and that's probably why I'm going to lose money. Some more from the 9,000. Corey Connors, always going to be high in my models because I value the approaches, and 3rd in strokes gained approach. Not his best distances, but certainly not bad. Very good on par fours of the length, so he's always going to be high on my model. Finau, solid. One thing to note about the Memorial generally is where players have their breakout win. Certainly DeChambeau, now he's a household name, major champion. His first big win came at the Memorial. I believe it was 2018, maybe 2017. I can't remember. Patrick Cantley's first big win came here at the Memorial. There are a lot of, this is kind of a vaulting point. This is a turn the corner from good player to great player for a lot of people. So somebody like Tony Finau, who hasn't really had a big win, he's had some very impressive showings, but hasn't had that big win. His one win is the Puerto Rico Open, which is not a premier event, to say the least. Somebody like Corey Connors, again, doesn't have a premier win, could possibly break through here. Emiliano Griot is another person. Neiman, another player. Scheffler. You can kind of see where players that are on the cusp of I don't know if I want to call it stardom, but on the cusp of being perennial favorites at tournaments they're at. And this is an opportunity. This is usually a good place for them to start that trajectory. So yeah, keep going down the list here, the 9,000s. So that's where I'm at. I'm kind of fading Cantley, even though he's high on my model. Schofley's always pretty chalky, although with him, he's kind of had some I don't want to say bad form. It's just it was really weird to see his interview at the Masters talking about how he kind of wanted to jump ahead of a narrative that wasn't being built, of how he always comes in second and doesn't win these big events. Now he's brought it on himself. So Schofley, is there me personally, I think there's a non-zero factor to a player having not won a big tournament yet. Whatever, factor that is certainly up to debate. Maybe you think it's a zero factor. I just think it's not. Until somebody proves that they can do it, there's always that doubt, at least for me. So I'm probably off Schofley, and I love Schofley as a golfer. I will always usually use Schofley whenever I can, and that's why I'm probably going to lose money. I will always tend to use Patrick Reed, and that's probably another reason why, because Patrick Reed is such a statistical anomaly. There are weeks where he shows up and typical Patrick Reed fashion will chip in from off 3 greens and make 20-foot putts for birdie, and he's one of the top players in the world. And then there are times where he doesn't show up. He just misses the cut for apparently no reason. But I'll generally play Reed. Scheffler's sneaky, pretty high on my rankings. Then we go into the 8,000s. Sam Burns at 8,900. That's just too rich for my blood. especially when I feel like I get better players like Reed, like Finau, and to a certain extent Connors, right around his price. Neiman, right below him, I think is a better player. Cameron Smith, very good player, very good around the green. His, always been a short game specialist. He's now starting to play well, do well off the tee. If that continues, he's going to rise to stardom. I mean, he's, won the Zurich a couple times. He came second at the 2020 Masters in November. I think it was in November, in the fall. So Cameron Smith's another one to look out for. Louis off a pretty good PGA. Pretty good being an understatement. Just didn't have what it took to match Phil. But certainly a good PGA. He's right there. He's in form. The one player I want to talk about is Sung Jae. Sung Jae in this range, if he is peak Sung Jae, 8,200 and what is he at on DraftKings right now? I'm scrolling 66 to 1. That's pretty high for Sung Jae. That's high for Sung Jae. I mean, you look here, like, strokes gained approach hasn't been good. Opportunities gained, which is a fairly unique statistic, I think, to Fantasy National. It's the ability to gain a birdie when other players don't. I think is the best way to put it. There is a definition up here, just to save some time. I think that's how it is. Not good. But the thing with Sung Jae is his tournaments have been inconsistent as far as why he hasn't been doing well. I mean, you see at he got 17th at the PGA. He was very good at Kiowa. Very good. Here at the Wells Fargo when he missed the cut, I mean, he was even off the tee and lost everywhere else. It was a disaster. Then last week at the Charles Schwab was, pretty bad off the tee, but gained putting. Masters, he was just really bad. But you had some form there in the early spring when we were in the West Coast. You're talking, Waste Management, Farmers, Amex, Sony. If he returns to I don't even want to say peak Sung Jae, but the Sung Jae that puts it together for 3 rounds and holds it together for the other one, this is a place I think is, again, a place for us for a breakout win. Certainly. That's somebody I'm going to be targeting, especially in daily fantasy. I don't know if I'll get there on the 66 to 1 for outright betting. Certainly you can look at top 10s, top 20s, but we're here to win big money, right? So I don't know if I'll get there on the 66, but I could probably be talked into it. I'm avoiding Ricky at 8,000. Kind of the Cantley scenario I talked about. Do you believe one tournament, brings somebody back? Ricky has just struggled the past year and a half. I mean, Waste Management, Pebble Beach, the Players, Wells Fargo Bar, and then he comes back and plays well at the PGA. But he still was not good off the tee. I mean, not good off the tee. If you believe in one tournament brings a player back to form, that's somebody you can target this week. I'm out on him. We'll probably stay out on Ricky until he strings something together. I'm much more of a believer in Cantley than I am in Ricky Fowler. I'll put it to you that way. Going down the list here in the 7,000s, I like Gary Woodland. I don't know if he's back from his injury. Griot, we've talked about. The Zayden Hood I like, we've talked about. Kevin Streelman is in immaculate form right now. He has quietly put together quite a good season, especially the past month or so. Minus the miscut at the Wells Fargo, if you go back to late March, I mean, you've got 5 of 6 cuts made with none being worse than a 36th. That'll get it done for generally what you're paying for Kevin Streelman. 8th at PGA, 20th last week. I mean, who didn't tie for 20th? I think there was about 12 players that tied for 20th and killed any top 20 bet that anybody ever made. But I mean, very good form. Very good form. He's never been good around the green, clearly. But he's been playing well off the tee. His approaches, as long as they stay dialed in. I mean, look, he gained almost 6 strokes. I mean, that's lap the field type numbers on approach. He was just so bad around the green that held him back. But if you get a week like this, and this is, more of the minus 0.5, maybe even break even 0, you're looking at a Kevin Streelman top 5. That would be my guess, as long as you get these kind of numbers. So I don't want to say, bold prediction, Kevin Streelman top 5s, but I mean, I would be much more comfortable betting a top 5, top 10 on Kevin Streelman and feeling pretty good about it considering the odds of others around him. Just kind of going down through this list. Doug Gim, another analytic darling. Patton Kazira coming off a big week last week. Siwoo withdrawing last week. So, I mean, it's Siwoo. He withdraws and then he goes and wins. So maybe you just bet Siwoo to win this week. I don't know. Again, coming down here, Luke List. I'm always going to be out on List just because he can't putt. I mean, cannot putt worth a shit. He's like me on the greens. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. Whatever happened to Alex Norton? He used to be known as a short game specialist who, went and played very difficult courses very well. Now he's just part of birdie fests. He goes to Corrales and Puerto Rico and plays there and usually does well, but those aren't exactly elite fields. Don't think there's much down here that I'd be interested in. Maybe, 6,600 for Tom Hoagie. He's really bad at the par 4s that are prevalent at Muirfield, but he's got some decent numbers. But so that's what I'm looking at Fantasy National. Very useful tool. I will absolutely use it and give all the credit to Fantasy National. It's a great tool. I highly suggest you go and check it out and sign up for it. Then you don't have to listen to a schlup like me. You can just go make your own models and find the winners. The last thing I kind of wanted to touch on, I showed you the spreadsheet from earlier with saves versus around the green in general. I also did the same for driving distance and fairways gained. So trying to marry length plus finding fairways. And Keegan came out number 1. He's not short by any means. He's not, I wouldn't say he's a bomber, but he's not short by any means, but he's going to find fairways. And we talked about at Muirfield, you got to find fairways and not play out of that long rough. Kevin Streelman, somebody else, not exactly the longest hitter, obviously. He's going to find fairways. Morikawa, same way. Sungjae finds fairways, not long, but finds the fairways. Doug Gim, it's kind of the same. Now the opposite, you look at somebody like Joaquin Niemann. If he takes this number and cuts it in half and say he's 50th in fairways this week, he's got a really good shot as long as he keeps the distance and everything else stays to par. I like Niemann this week. Granted that he'll have to find some fairways. Luke List, another player that can really get hot with the irons. Can't putt. So you're kind of banking that he is going to find some fairways this week. but he can get scorching with the irons. Rory, always known as distance. If he finds the fairways, I mean, Rory's just going to lap the field. That's the way most of the top end golfers, DJ, Rory, Spieth, Bryson, if they're on their A game, Justin Thomas, if they're on their A game, no one's going to catch them. I mean, that's why they're the best in the world. That's why they're elite. John Rahm, Justin Thomas. I mean, those are the kind of players that they bring their A, maybe even their B plus game. It's going to be hard to beat them. And then this final column that I put together here is just almost a combination of these two. There's a couple other factors that go into it, but strokes gained off the tee, and this is sorted not in order, but by alphabetical. That way, I could do a few formulas here, and put together kind of a ranking system that I'll do. But number one off the tee, Bryson, length, and he'll find fairways. Bubba, length. Cameron Champ, length. Hal's kind of different. He's more of the fairway finder, although he's kind of balanced. Corey Connors very good off the tee, and then because of the three juxtaposing these two things around the green versus sand saves, distance versus fairways, I'm going to try to put together a little ranking for myself for this week when I start making some lineups and such. But to end the show, those are some of the criteria that I'm looking for. And then the two bets that I've made this week so far, I've got a win ticket on Hideki Matsuyama, who we didn't really even talk about, and he's kind of flying under the radar, and that's why I made the bet on him. I got him at 28-1. Last I saw, he had fallen to 25 or 22-1. So I found him at 28-1, and then Patrick Reed at 33-1. I'm always gonna bank on him putting it together, and that's probably why I'll lose a lot of money. But if he brings his A game, I don't see any reason why he's not one of the best players in the world. Love him or hate him, you can't deny the talent. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up the deep data dive of the 2021 Memorial. As always, leave some comments. I'll get to them, I promise. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tomorrow, because today's a Tuesday, tomorrow I will do the kind of the daily fantasy look, or spin to it. Look at the wind for the course, what's going on. Is there an AM PM favor, and then kind of a look at what I think is going to happen in the tournament. Look at some contests for DraftKings, and do what I do for that. I will try to set up a live chat by all means. Please join the chat. Love some interaction. See what you all think. But until tomorrow, may all your bets be